Well, I don't think I've ever heard so many birds in a city before. I'm really surprised by it. It's just wonderful. I went for a lovely walk yesterday in a delightful park. Delightful because, in a very Italian way, it was utterly unkept, meaning there was nothing mowed, nothing trimmed. Everything was in a state of decay, some of them probably a couple thousand years old. I don't know. It was just amazing because it's that Italian ability just for things to be beautiful uh, in just a general attitude and just a way of being. It was such a different beauty. I'm really amazed at the accidental advantage of spending a week with the Swiss and then spending a week with the Italians. It's just two opposite ends of the world in the way of how to manage this Maya, this confusion of being. And to find myself just present and moving through both of them has been quite an experience. Yesterday I was talking a bit about that as I kind of meandered through some thinking. And after having meandered through that thinking, I was meandering through some other thinking around the idea of why is it so difficult to be what we are. That's the whole aim of religion. The whole aim of life is to be. And I understood, actually, kind of as I sort of put a sum on a lot of the individual numbers to come up with a whole, and realized that the real difficulty of it is the fact that we've placed ourselves in an ego, that we don't live spontaneously from the realm of being, but that we've put our platform in the mind. Our ego is composed completely from the past. It's a summation of those assumptions about things that we think we like and those things we don't like, and those memories that we've chosen pretty much arbitrarily to hold in our awareness, to define what we are and who we are. And the problem with identifying with a self that is composed completely of the past is that it doesn't allow us to be present. It doesn't allow us to be in the now, to borrow Eckhart Tolle's words. Dwelling in an identity that requires the past and is composed completely of the past means that we observe this moment kind of from the edge of the past. And as I was playing with that idea, gosh, a lot of things unfolded. This notion of viewing the moment from the edge of the past really is what creates this whole illusion of change. And you're like, what illusion of change? Well, change isn't possible in the moment. The now doesn't change. How is that possible? Well, I go to the idea of a movie. In a movie, there's no movement. The movement is completely generated by the mind seeing one frame of the film and then seeing a slightly different frame of the film, and then creating story to link the two. That's what movement in a movie is all about. And I suspect, at least within one way of thinking, that life is like that. If we live purely in the now, it's unchanging. In a fun way of thinking about it, it's always here and it's always now. You can't be anywhere but here, and you can't do it at any other time than now. And in a weird sense, very philosophical sense probably, that's unchanging. So this moment isn't changing because there's no room in it to change. It's instantaneous, right? So when we actually live in the previous frame of the film, as it were, and we view the next frame, which is actually the present, but we're not able to be there while we're identified in ego, the story creates, or the mind creates its story. And that story is what gives the illusion of a change. And if that doesn't drive you crazy to think about that, good. Then you'll survive to the end of the video to come up with this notion of living. Well, actually, there was something else that really unfolded from that thought, is that the past is completely arbitrary and make-believe, right? It's purely conceptual. It's product of mind. It's not the moment itself. And so by identifying with that, we're always peering at the moment as separate from ourself, and doing it from a place of utter insecurity, because the idea of self that is contained in ego is based on a constantly changing set of parameters. The past, first of all, isn't real. It's conceptual. And so to identify with yourself with something unreal is going to leave you feeling rather unsecured, somewhat adrift. And then to base that sense of self on something that's adrift and unsecured, there's going to be this constant need of collecting or finding or proving something that will provide you with a sense of security, a sense of being. And that is what we experience in the form of desire. That it's standing on this make-believe notion of being based on a past that makes us feel the instability, and then occupies our mind with a constant effort to shore up some security. And so that's really, however that manifests, all of those manifestations of that are going to be all of your desires. And actually all of those are going to come from, an ideal, what we imagine to be secure, what we imagine to be stable. And it's going to be based on our experience. And experience only happens when you're not in the moment, right? Because experience is a recognition of change. And that recognition of change only happens when we stand on the precipice of the past and view the moment, as we started this talk. So, our effort in spiritual life is to let go of our past, let go of our story, so that in that letting go of that perspective, we can dwell in a spontaneous present, which will be very secure, because you can't get more stable than here and now. But we're not willing to let go of that story. We're not willing to let go of that identity based on our collected memories and our collected attractions and aversions. And so the fact, which actually turns out to be our karma, because that very much defines the perspective from which we're viewing the moment. And to let go of that karma, which is held by our own mind, is very difficult. I remember when I broke my leg, and I don't know when it was, something like 2008 or something. I literally looked down and my foot was hanging off to the side of my leg, which is not a condition you ever want to be in. And when I fell to the floor, I had this very unpleasant task of having to hold my foot first of all, to get it out of that right angle and to kind of align my own foot with my leg. Not pleasant, I'm telling you. It was a very, very, very troubling situation. And so sitting there, holding my foot in what I was approximating to be where it should be, is when the ambulance crew showed up, and they wanted to cut my pant leg and put a splint so that I wouldn't have to hold my leg on, which was a good idea, I think. The problem was they told me to let go of my leg, and so I did the usual thing, which is just mentally tell yourself to let go of your leg, just like you do anything, right? But my fingers would not let go of my leg. They simply wouldn't let go, and the ambulance folks had to end up prying my own hands off of my own leg, because my own hands were not listening to me. They were not obeying me. And that's the situation we find our ego self in, is that there's a sense of panic and fear about being undefined, about the unknown. And so when we tell our ego to go away, or we tell ourselves to be present, we can't. We just can't do it. And the only two options available, one is impossible, and the other one's just difficult to accept. The impossible one is to get the tumblers of this lock that's holding us in this grip of fear perfectly lined up by coming to a karmic point of zero, where we don't have any good or bad karma. We're in perfect balance. At that point, we could let go of our story because there would be security and strength in that. But we can't really seem to do that because we've got how many lifetimes of karma buildup that we're not even aware of. So we can't start sorting through that horrendous pile of whatnot. So this is the point of the grace of the moment, grace that comes in, and we can rely on a perfection given to us for no reason, just by the nature of the universe we live in, which is pure love, pure wisdom, and pure being. And so the effort in spiritual life, to be clear, is not getting the tumblers to the 0 point, but getting ourselves into a place of faith, or we could use the word trust, of the present moment, to be perfect as it is, without resistance. That would be called grace. That would be called a gift without reason, because it is the elimination of reason, the elimination of assumptions of mind. But in that, we can return to this spontaneous, unchanging in its experience moment. Now, that's a lot of stuff going on in there. That's rather confusing, but I can't help but seeing that that's the way it is. And the difficulty of experiencing the now, of being mindful, of living a life without resistance, is this underlying primordial terror that we experience by the subtle realization that we have no idea what this is. We have no idea where we are. We have no idea what we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be doing. And the stories that have created egoism are an imaginary floaty that we've put around ourselves to survive, to carry on from day to day. It's a real dilemma. If you unpack it little piece by little piece like that, which is why the beloved appears to us as other, manifests within our world of fear, to show us fearlessness, to show us that this is dreamlike, and that the nature of it is pure love, and that it's okay. You are okay, just as you are, where you are, in the win that you're experiencing. And so trust the universe, trust the divine, trust the moment, trust the mother, trust God, anything that you want to call it or refer it to, embrace it. And in that full embrace, find a new definition of yourself that isn't composed of the past, that is composed in this delightful, spontaneous experience of standing in a place of stillness and security and watching with great joy this never repeating, constant flow of change, which by our understanding and assumption is a constant expression of a divine and pure love.